Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the 2020 Open Fox Training and Implementation Meeting. We hope you had a good day yesterday and got some valuable information from yesterday's presentations. We hope that today's presentations will be just as informative as yesterday's were. Before we move on, I'd like to just take a minute to thank the presenters for all their hard work that they put into hopefully making yesterday a success, and we hope again that today will be a success as well. We know we had a few people that had some technical glitches, but we tried to send out a link yesterday late afternoon that hopefully will help with that allows you to do some self-test on your system to make sure that you can connect successfully. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. I know that some of you are off for Veterans Day, and I just want to take a minute to thank any of the veterans that we have in the audience today. Thank you for your service. Today is also kind of a noteworthy day, and so if any of you know what that is, if you can make your comments in the chat section, and we'll see if anybody gets the answer correct, and I'll tell you what the significance of today is before I get off here. So let's just take a few minutes here to run through the agenda for today and see what we have planned for the day. Immediately following my opening remarks, we'll have a presentation on some of the things going on or recent accomplishments in Idaho. A state showcase, and that presentation will be presented by Sandy Kelleher with the Idaho State Police. And then from CPI, we've got Kristen Bradley, who's a project manager, and Eric Clevenger, who's a senior technical lead for CPI. Following that, we'll have an update from Inlets. Inlets generally takes part in our training and implementation meetings, and we're always glad to hear from Inlets. The presenters for that particular presentation will be Bonnie Locke, who's the Chief Marketing Officer for Inlets, Kate Sealhole, who's the Chief Information Officer, Terry Fournier Harson, who is the Training and Education Program Manager, and then Kristen Marquardt, who is the Business Relations Manager. So always good to have the folks from Inlets with us. At 10:05, we'll have a break so you can grab something to drink and warm up your coffee. And then at 10:20, John Yerdy with Peak Performance will be with us. And again, John also is a regular at our meetings, and he always has some good information to share with us. At 10:50, we'll have a presentation on Desktop 4, and that presentation will be presented by Maria Martinez, who's the Director of User Applications, Louis Filippo, who is a Senior Technical Lead, and also, again, Eric Clevenger, who's also a Senior Technical Lead. We'll break for lunch at 11:30, and then at 12:45, we'll have the DIN results and closing remarks. And Steve, Kevin, and Ryan will present this. What this is every meeting we have the DIN sessions, and we record your comments and your suggestions, which we greatly appreciate. And we got a lot of good information yesterday, and they will compile that information and present that to you. They'll also have some closing remarks there, and then that we're switching up the schedule just a little bit. The closing remarks will follow the DIN results, and then the last sessions of the day at beginning at 1:4. I'm sorry, we'll have a break at 1:45, and then the last sessions at 2 o'clock will be the Birds of the Feather sessions. Now these are just topical small group discussion sessions that you can join depending on your particular interest in the topic. And again, these are interactive sessions to give you an opportunity to discuss these issues with the presenters. The first session at 2 o'clock, and there'll be 2 sessions going on each hour, so you'll have to choose which one you want to go to. But the first session at 2 o'clock is the CPI Generic Web Services and N3G, and that will be presented by Ian Warner, who's the Director of Communications at CPI. And then simultaneously going on there will be an OR validation focus group, and that will be led by Eric Clevenger, again, Senior Technical Lead at CPI. And what that one is just an exploration to see if there's something that we can do to help automate the ORI validation process, something that will probably interest a lot of people. And then the second group of Birds of a Feather sessions will begin at 3:15. And the first one there is software updates, TOUs, and support center information. And this just goes over the whole process of how the TOU system works at CPI and between us and you guys, and also the support center and what we can offer you. That presentation will be led by Vivek Dubha, who is the support center director. Sounds like we've got some competing audio going on. Abdel Mohammed, who's a technical lead, and then Bob Ponzovic and Nate Strong, who are both technical analysts. And then simultaneously with that, we will have a presentation on Sex Offender Registry 2.0. And that presentation will include Eric Clevenger, Kristen Bradley, who's project manager, Andrew Murphy, who's senior software engineer, and Steve Liebig, who's a junior software engineer. And then once you complete those or finish those presentations there, then that will conclude our meeting. I do want to add just one thing though to the this is a recent addition to the agenda, and it's certainly optional, but we're offering a happy hour, sort of a virtual happy hour at 7:30 Central Time tonight. We'll be sending out a link to that event a little bit later, but it's just an opportunity to log on and visit with some of your fellow attendees and the CPI staff. So you can grab your favorite beverage. Now, for those of you out west who may still be at the office, your favorite beverage may have to be a soft drink or a cup of coffee. But for those in the east, it's your choice. So we encourage you to join that, and hopefully that'll be just an enjoyable session and opportunity to visit a little bit after the meeting's over with. And I was just looking at the comments, and let me scroll back up here just a little bit. Dorothy Thornton was one, and I can't go through all the comments right now, but she got it right. It's the celebration of the Marine Corps birthday, United States Marine Corps, Semper Fi, 225-year anniversary or birthday today. And it's also my granddaughter's 3rd birthday. So two important events taking place today. So let's see if I've missed anything. I think that that concludes my comments for this morning. I've really enjoyed having the opportunity to visit with you. Nothing like visiting with you in person. And I do have one other thing to say, though, before I've got another minute here. And I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of you for your hard work. You know, that 2010 year. But in spite of the fact that you've had to work from home, had all kinds of adverse conditions, you've kept your systems up. You've provided service to the men and women out there on the street, the whole criminal justice community that takes the service that you provide sometimes for granted. As far as I know, you kept that going without a hitch. And I just want to personally thank you for all that you've done under these trying times. So we're about, looks like maybe a minute early, but I'd like to turn it over now to the folks that are going to do the state showcase from Idaho. Please welcome Sandy Kelleher, Kristen Bradley, and Eric Clevenger.
Hello, this is Kristen Bradley from CPI. Just as a quick preface, when we originally planned to do this particular presentation, we thought Sandy and I would be in the same room. So if you can bear with us for 1 second and make sure we've got everybody kind of connected in audio, both here in the Chicagoland area and in Idaho as well. So just giving Sandy a second, if you do have audio, if you just want to say hi and introduce yourself real quick.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. I wasn't sure. This is Sandy. I'm the operations officer for Bureau of Criminal Identification here in Idaho. And we're really excited with the projects that we've been doing with CPI this year. And we're really excited to share that with you.
Excellent. So as I think Bill mentioned as we were doing the introduction, my name is Kristen Bradley, and I'm a project manager here at CPI, and I am the project manager for the state of Idaho. And I took over that account about a year ago, and over the course of the last year, I feel like we've done some really interesting, creative, and innovative things in the partnership between Idaho and CPI. And Sandy is a member of our UEC, and I got to talking about possibly doing a presentation where we highlighted some of the interesting things we've done and talked a little bit about the relationship and how it's both spawned a pretty major project and initiative in Idaho, but also a lot of day-to-day change and innovation for them. So just a couple quick housekeeping things, a reminder that this session is being recorded, and also a reminder that Sandy and I both have live mics, and we are several thousand miles apart, so please bear with us if we do a little talking over one another. We do it in the same room, so I would expect it's going to happen here as well. And then finally, we will hopefully have some time at the end to take questions. Just asking that you put your questions in the Q&A section. And if we do run out of time, we will certainly circle back and provide some additional follow-up and feedback either after the TIM or later on today. So I guess I wanted to start by talking a little bit about the products and partnership between CPI and the state of Idaho. As you can see, they have a lot of our products, and it's been a pretty long, robust relationship between both Idaho and CPI. We've worked together to innovate in that state, and I think we've done really good work for them, and they've been an excellent partner to us, which has a lot to do with some of the innovations that have happened this year. So, new in 2020, we launched several new products this year. And the big one that we're really excited about, and a lot of this presentation is going to cover, is the SOR 2.0 that we launched in Idaho. In addition to that, we also did a launch of a couple of new products using CPI's Interceptor and kind of a new look at Amber Alerts. In addition to that, we also just wrapped up a DMV interface for Idaho's vehicles. CPI and Idaho have developed a pretty long partnership and the longstanding relationship with an eye towards innovation. Sandy, I didn't know if you had anything to add on what we've done this year before we start talking a little bit about the SOR 2.0.
No, I think that covers what we've done. We also have worked on some statements of work to be coming up soon. So there's a lot of work that we have put into our Blue Alert this year that we're going to start implementing in January. So we're pretty excited about that project also.
Yeah, so just a little bit on the Blue and the Amber. They're similar projects, and they utilize our Interceptor product. And essentially what it is for Amber, which is the one that's currently live, a missing persons transaction will essentially spawn an Amber Alert. And it's something that Idaho really wanted to look for a way to make their state safer and more efficient. And so it was a solution that we hadn't implemented elsewhere. And that's a pretty common trend between CPI and Idaho, is that they'll come to us with an idea, a problem, something that they want to innovate. And we have tried to figure out ways to do it in a new, interesting, unique way to solve problems for them. So kind of the big headline piece for the state of Idaho this year was the SOR 2.0 launch. And it was the culmination of a lot of hard work from both the CPI team and the Idaho team. We launched into production on June 23rd of 2020. It's a little sign from the SOR group in Idaho. They were, I think, as excited, if not more so than we were, to get that product launched. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about how we approach development on the SOR product, because I feel like in a lot of ways, and I think Sandy can probably agree with this, that it really became the template for how we approach a lot of things in the state of Illinois, or the state of Idaho, where we basically take in ongoing customer feedback throughout the entire process and innovate and essentially use that feedback to create a customer feedback loop. So what would often happen during development is, for example, we would send out a set of screens to their users. And they'd look at the screens and say, this works, but could we move this button over here? Or could we possibly change how the information feeds in from the back end? And then we would do another iteration of it and they would provide feedback. So while I wouldn't go so far as to say it was a true agile process, it was definitely extremely iterative and extremely customer facing. So what we ended up with at the end of that process was a really solid base product that can be leveraged across many different SORs, where it deals with the core needs of any SOR product. But because we also had the customers involved throughout, Sandy's team was really able to create specific pieces of that product that met their specific needs. So Sandy, I don't know if you had anything to add there. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but
we are.
Yeah.
I think the biggest part of this project was the fact that we were there at the beginning. So we were able to, or our team were able to do step by step on how they wanted to see things done. And because we had SOR 1.0, we knew what improvements we would like to see in 2.0. And so being able to start at the very beginning and work through this whole process. And with CPI coming here and sitting down with our folks and watching what they were doing in 1.0, they also could see some of the improvements that we needed. And they looked at things to make it easier for our process.
Yeah.
So that was huge for us.
And, you know, one of the great things about this process was it actually started in the pre-COVID era. So our team was in Idaho twice, you know, garnering feedback for kind of the initial round of development. And then, you know, secondarily, we were able to go back about halfway through the process and really kind of talk to them, see their pain points, really have conversations where our engineers were embedded with their team, looking very specifically at, you know, even the smallest details of the system, what was working, what wasn't. You know, and I think really what that led to was a product that both sides felt a strong ownership of and just a really high level of excitement when it finally came to fruition. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the product itself, because, you know, CPI has had an SOR product, but the new version really focused a great deal on an improved registration process, record drafting redesign, the NCIC sync, and kind of overall system health. And the reason that these were the focuses were because we as a team at CPI really thought that those were areas where we could do new and interesting things, but it was also very clear based on our conversations with the Idaho team that these were areas that would make their day-to-day life better, kind of improve the overall quality of using the system. So that's really what we focused on. And I did want to mention, I think Billy had said, we are going to be doing a birds of a feather session on SOR this afternoon. And during that session, one of our engineers, Steve, will be doing kind of a deeper dive into the SOR product and give you an opportunity to really see what these 4 pillars look like in practice. So if you have any interest in that, you want to ask some deep and technical questions, I think that's a great opportunity to do that and really get a little more familiarization with the products. So these next couple of slides come from feedback from Sandy's team, and specifically her lead on this project, a lovely woman named Amy, who was just such a profoundly helpful partner during the entire process. And I think it's really important to look at this feedback kind of in a holistic approach. One of the things that I really love is that she, as much as she loves the product, she's been candid that, do we love it? Yes. Is it without issues? Of course not. And throughout the process, there were things that took time and some things that we had to make compromises to figure out how this is going to function, in a way that works for the customer, but is also kind of realistic from, an overall architecture point of view from our team. So for instance, we had some headaches with the merge functionality. They had some very specific ideas about what it needed to be, and it was a process to really get it where it was workable for them and worked within kind of our overall architecture. And occasionally during developments, and we would have issues where it would freeze up. And while we wish everything went perfectly smoothly, I think what made that really manageable with the team was that over the course of several months, we had built a strong relationship and strong trust between Sandy's team and our own. So the ultimate result was that when things weren't going quite like they expected them to, or it took 2 or 3 or 4 iterations to get it where everybody on the team was comfortable, there was a belief that we were going to get there, that, we were committed on both sides to making sure that the final product really worked and functioned the way that we expected it to. Sandy, I didn't know if you had anything to add to this, because I know you talk to them even more than I do.
So I guess the biggest thing was that there was, and there still is, we find little bugs that didn't come up when we were testing. All our testing, the majority of it was done from home. So during this time, all of our employees were at home working. So all of them were testing from home. And they did a fantastic job. I mean, they were dedicated to each of them. There were 7 at that time. We had 7 employees that were testing anywhere from 3 to 4 hours a day. So we put a lot of testing time in, but you still don't get everything. So occasionally we still find little things, but it's nothing that is overwhelming or serious that can't be fixed. I think one of the comments from Amy was the fact that she was afraid to ask for too much. And Maria had said to her, all you can do is ask. We'll tell you if it's in the scope. And they were actually able to get everything that they wanted. In addition, she said there was surprises, things that the team found that would make their job easier that they didn't think of. And this was all because they spent the time to sit with our folks and see what they did day to day. So we were really excited with that process.
Yeah, and if I could add, this is a quote from Amy, and it really, as much as it talks about the product, it equally talks about the process. And I think, we as a team here at CPI, well, we are profoundly proud of the SOR 2.0 product. I also think that we felt very strongly that the process was, a huge success. The idea of getting Amy and her team involved very early, the idea that we did not at any point ever assume that we knew what they needed. We asked questions, we did a lot of discovery and a lot of iterative rounds with this. And ultimately, I think it was a product and a relationship that, when it launched, we had a pretty long launch day. And we were hoping to be about a half a day, and it was definitely a full day trying to get it fully cut into production, do some kind of day of troubleshooting. And whereas I think that would be a fairly high stress situation, in reality, everybody was pretty calm because we had been through this together. And so at some point during the process, it stopped being the CPI team and the Idaho team, and we were just the SOR team. And we were kind of handling it, troubleshooting it. And there was a belief on both in Idaho and in Bolingbrook that, everything was manageable and that we were in this together and we were going to get it figured out. So, I think it was a success both from, a procedural point of view, but also from a product point of view as well. In addition to the SOR, which we got through this year, we also, as I said, did some other smaller, by comparison, smaller projects, including the Interceptor and the Amber Alert. So that was kind of an interesting thing because it really spawned from conversations that Sandy had both with myself and my predecessor with Idaho about how to leverage existing CPI technology to make the state of Idaho safer and more efficient. And I'm not going to get too into the weeds on the Amber Alerts, but suffice it to say, what it really does is takes a missing person transaction and allows it to spawn into an Amber Alert, which helped with the kind of overall efficiency within the state of Idaho, and was something that, was an ongoing process that we had over the course of the last year. And we're planning to start a project in January to do a similar thing with violet person transactions and blue alerts. So I didn't know if you had anything to add there, Sandy.
Well, there was some challenges that I want to share with Interceptor. But I think we've gotten everything taken care of. It's been in test for a few more weeks. We haven't seen any problems, but CPI has worked with us through the process to get it to where we need it to be. And we really need Interceptor to make Amber Alert and Blue Alert work. So when someone completes a missing person entry and notates that they're requesting an Amber Alert, it's caught in our Interceptor. And so our Knox Center sees that. They send it on to our missing persons manager, who then approves it, does what she needs to do, and sends it out. And when she sends it out, it goes to Code Red, who then sends a WIA out and gets it to our traffic boards and to the news. And it goes everywhere that it needs to go to, all our agencies. And so without Interceptor, this wouldn't work. So having Interceptor has been such a strong point for us, and to have it working well was important.
Yeah, and to be candid, I think Sandy is incredibly right that the Interceptor has and continues to be a little bit of a work in progress for us. But I think that idea of coming in and being willing to try a new product, being willing to kind of work through the process with us has been really helpful in terms of our ability to continue with the overall development of Interceptor and make it work and function in a way that kind of lends itself to the Amber Alert. So what I think that's really a good segue here for kind of what the SOR project and the process in general have led to in terms of kind of the underpinning of the relationship between Idaho and CPI. As you can see, they've got some projects kind of in the pipeline for next year. SOR camera project, a DMV images project. As a result of finishing the SOR, we've discovered that there are some updates that need to happen to their SOR website and a Parks and Recreation web service. So Idaho always has things going on. And so we're always having to find new and interesting ways to either solve problems or do kind of traditional projects. I mean, our Parks and Recreation web service is going to be a pretty standard web service, but it's still, is the result of having to innovate as a result of changes to the overall DMV structure in the state of Idaho. And I think kind of the timing of the SOR project, along with how we tackled it, has really shaped how CPI and Idaho work in partnership. As I mentioned, I took over as the PM in Idaho a little over a year ago. Actually, I think Sandy and I officially got partnered up at the TIM last year. We did. So the SOR was really the first big undertaking that we did together. And because it had to be a partnership, there was no way we were going to do that without the two of us really kind of working in lockstep. That kind of shaped how we've handled the relationship moving forward. So we've taken a strong partnership approach. And I think it's a little interesting to say at the end of the first year, we had this major initiative of launching the SOR 2.0 product, but at the same time, the fundamental changes in the state of Idaho have also been small and incremental. So what often happens is Sandy will give me a call and be like, we're having a problem with this thing, and I don't know what to do. And oftentimes that'll result in an SOWEZ or a small project, or sometimes just a conversation about, is there a workaround that we can do? And as a result, little by little, the landscape of Idaho changes month to month, year to year. So while they're still doing these big DMV projects and SOR projects, they're also fundamentally changing what Idaho looks like through smaller initiatives. And so our process is pretty similar to these 4 questions. Anytime that she comes to me with something that's kind of outside the box, we talk about what the struggle is, what the challenge is, what we think some possible solutions would be. We bring in technical resources sometimes to really offer insight. Then we look at see if there's something small we can do to impact the outcome. Not everything has to be completely tearing out a system and building it from new. Sometimes we can find a workaround. Sometimes we can find a small project that will kind of create a big difference. The other thing that I think we've been pretty good about talking about between Idaho and CPI is the impact worth the effort. I know I've been on multiple calls with her where we're talking about, should we do this? And one of our tech leads will come in and say, if you do this, this, and this, we don't even have to provide a solution here. And so I think because we have this kind of open communication and relationship where we really view it as a partnership, oftentimes, the solution is trying to find a different way. And that's something that I think Idaho is really great at, is being willing to innovate, being willing to try something in a way that we haven't traditionally done in the past. So oftentimes, the solution or the small things that we're doing in Idaho, it's the first time we've tried it. And I think that kind of spirit of innovation has really lent itself well to kind of Idaho's ability to try new things and find new solutions. So, Sandy, I didn't know if you had anything to add.
Not really. I like the fact that CPI is willing to work with us. Sometimes I just have ideas that I want to make happen, just so that my end users have it easier. And that's our goal, is to make it simple for our end users and still get done what we need to do each and every day, or improve what they're doing every day to make their job easier. And CPI understands that. And Kristen and her team have worked with us on several projects just to make that happen.
Yeah. And, I think every state has different needs. Every, project manager is going to look at it, different solutions in different ways. But I think what really, if I could stress one thing, I would say that part of Idaho's innovation over the course of the last year really resulted from a replication of the relationship we had during the SOR 2.0 process into kind of the day-to-day operations and project management planning that we've done. And I think that that's been really helpful for Idaho from my outside observations, but it's also been really great for CPI to be able to have Sandy and her team kind of available to bounce ideas off of or to provide honest feedback. Being honest through the SR process, sometimes we'd have conversations where we weren't always seeing eye to eye, but there was always a profound respect for the ideas that were being brought in a spirit of, let's try and figure this out. And I think that's really kind of lent itself to the overall relationship between CPI and Idaho and kind of how we're planning to tackle it moving forward. So that's really kind of the bulk of what we wanted to present today. As I said, it was going to be pretty SOR heavy because that was what we spent a considerable amount of our time and energy on this year. But we've also done a lot of cool, interesting, smaller things as well. So, we're happy to answer some questions. I'm looking to see if we have anything in QA that people want to ask us. It doesn't look like it, but we'll hang out for a minute. And Sandy, I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add kind of as a wrap up.
I just think that when you're going to start a project, keep your mind open and don't limit to what you want. If there's something that you really want that you don't know if it'll work or not, just bring it up. There's several things I do because I just figure they're a tech company and this is how I want it to work and I want them to figure it out. And I haven't had them tell me no. So just anything that you can think of when you're doing a project, bring it up. Don't limit yourself and let them figure out what it is and how to make it happen. That's probably the best I've got for you.
All right. Well, I can't say it better than that. So we're going to leave it on that note. We do not have any questions right now, and that's fine. if you think of something, Sandy and I are both really, really findable. And if you have any questions about kind of the SOR product or Interceptor or anything that we've talked about today, feel free to reach out to your project manager. They can find me and I can find Sandy, and we can kind of reconnect if you have any follow-ups. And beyond that, if you have any interest in SOR 2.0, I highly recommend attending the Birds of a Feather this afternoon. I think you'll get to see the system kind of live and in person. We're going to be demoing some of the things we did for Idaho, and we're going to have the actual architect engineers in there. So they'll be there to pick for their brains to be picked if you want to ask some more kind of deeply technical questions. So on that note, I am going to turn it back over to kind of the control center and to what is next on the agenda. Thank you all so much for your time. And yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks.